When regular people get divorced, the custody battle focuses on who gets the kids on weekends, who pays child support, and how to split holidays without creating more trauma than necessary. When billionaires get divorced, those same custody questions get answered with private islands, million-dollar apartments bought in children's names, sons ordered by courts to pay their own mothers tens of millions, and legal battles that span multiple countries, with teams of lawyers costing more per hour than most people earn in a month. The dollar amounts in billionaire divorces are crazy, literally settlements in the tens of billions. But the real damage often isn't measured in money. It's measured in children caught between warring parents who have unlimited resources to drag out legal battles for years, siblings forced to choose sides, and kids who grow up watching their family's private pain play out in international courts and global headlines. From Jeff Bezos and Mackenzie Scott's carefully hidden custody arrangements to Russian oligarch divorces where children become pawns in billion-dollar asset battles, these cases show what happens when unlimited wealth meets family breakdown. And just so you know, having billions doesn't make divorce any less messy for the kids caught in the middle. Jeff Bezos and Mackenzie Scott. In 2019, Jeff Bezos and Mackenzie Scott finalized what was then the most expensive divorce in history. The settlement was approximately $38 billion in Amazon stock transferred to Mackenzie, making it the largest divorce payout ever recorded. But despite the crazy numbers and global media attention, almost nothing is publicly known about what happened with their 4 children. Jeff and Mackenzie have 4 kids together, 3 sons and an adopted daughter from China. At the time of the divorce, the children ranged from teenagers to young adults. And unlike most billionaire divorces that turn into years-long public battles, the Bezos custody arrangements never became headline news. There were no leaked court documents detailing custody schedules, no reports of bitter fights over who gets the kids for holidays, no allegations of one parent turning children against the other. The whole custody situation was handled so privately that even now, years after the divorce, we don't know the specifics of their arrangements. What we do know is that both parents remained intensely protective of their children's privacy throughout the divorce. Neither Jeff nor Mackenzie spoke publicly about custody. They didn't drag their kids into court to testify. They didn't use the children as leverage in settlement negotiations. This level of discretion is rare in divorces involving this much money. When you're splitting $38 billion in assets, there are usually fights about everything: property, businesses, investments, and yes, the kids. But the Bezos divorce stands out precisely because it didn't follow that pattern. Legal experts suspect the custody arrangements were settled out of court through private negotiations, with both parties agreeing to keep those details completely sealed. Given that both Jeff and Mackenzie are still actively involved in their children's lives, and neither has publicly badmouthed the other regarding parenting, it suggests they managed to separate their business/financial split from their role as co-parents. The Bezos case shows that even in divorces involving unfathomable wealth, it's possible to prioritize children's well-being and privacy. But it's also worth noting that this kind of discretion is easier when both parties are incredibly wealthy in their own right. Mackenzie walked away with enough money to be one of the richest women in the world. She didn't need to fight for more. Jeff retained control of Amazon and remained the world's richest person, at least temporarily. Neither had to use custody as leverage because neither was in a position where they needed more. Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes. Split wasn't just about fame or fortune. It was a quiet but intense battle for their daughter, Suri. Tom Cruise, one of the world's biggest movie stars, married actress Katie Holmes in 2006. They were the picture of glamour, but by 2012, everything fell apart. When Katie filed for divorce, she did it fast, secretly, and strategically. Her main goal wasn't the money. It was to protect her daughter. Reports say Katie feared Suri would be drawn too deeply into Tom's Scientology beliefs, so she acted before he could react. Within days, she filed in New York took custody of Surrey and moved out. It was one of the fastest settlements in celebrity history. Katie Holmes got primary custody. Tom got visitation rights and was ordered to pay support until Surrey turns 18. However, behind the calm legal language was a deeper story. A father cut off from his child. A mother determined to shield her daughter from something she saw as dangerous. Since then, Surrey has grown up largely out of the spotlight. Paparazzi photos show her walking with her mom in New York, living a normal life. Tom hasn't been seen publicly with her in years. Vladimir Potanin. Vladimir Potanin is one of Russia's richest men, with a net worth around $29 billion from nickel and palladium mining. He's been married twice and has 3 children from his first marriage. And that's basically all we know about his custody arrangements. Despite his enormous wealth and high profile in Russia, details about his divorce and what happened with his children have remained largely private. This is becoming increasingly common among billionaire divorces, especially those involving Russian oligarchs who value discretion and have the resources to keep personal matters out of public courts. Unlike the Rybolovlev and Akhmedov cases, which played out in Western courts with public filings, many ultra-wealthy Russians handle their divorces through private settlements that never see daylight. Bill and Melinda Gates, the Gates divorce. In 2021 was massive news. A $76 billion fortune being split, one of the most powerful philanthropic partnerships in history ending, and endless speculation about what caused the breakdown after 27 years of marriage. But unlike many billionaire divorces, custody wasn't an issue for one simple reason. All 3 of their children were already adults when the divorce was announced. Jennifer, Rory, and Phoebe Gates were 25, 21, and 18 respectively when their parents filed for divorce. No custody battles, fights over visitation rights, or court-ordered parenting plans. The kids were grown, making their own decisions, and living independent lives. That doesn't mean the divorce didn't affect them. Jennifer, the oldest, posted on social media about how difficult the family situation was. She made it clear the divorce was painful, even though she was an adult. Having your parents split after nearly 3 decades of marriage doesn't suddenly become easy just because you're legally old enough to handle it. But from a legal standpoint, the Gates divorce sidestepped one of the most contentious aspects of billionaire breakups. There were no questions about which parent got primary custody, no arguments about child support payments, no worry about one parent trying to turn the kids against the other through financial manipulation. The Gates children were already established in their own careers and identities by the time the divorce happened. They didn't need to choose sides. They could maintain relationships with both parents without court-ordered schedules dictating when they saw each one. Interestingly, the Gates divorce filing specifically noted that there was no separate provision for child support because all the children were adults. The settlement focused entirely on dividing assets without the added complication of determining what's best for minor children. This timing likely made the divorce smoother than it could have been. Imagine if Bill and Melinda had divorced 10 years earlier, when all 3 kids were still minors. The custody battle over children with that much wealth and visibility would have been brutal. Questions about security, education, lifestyle, travel, all of it would have become ammunition in legal filings. The Gates case shows that when couples wait until kids are grown to split, they avoid one of the most destructive aspects of divorce. But it also raises questions about whether staying together for the kids is worth it when the marriage is clearly over. Dmitry Rybolovlev and Elena. Now we get into the messy stuff. Dmitry Rybolovlev is a Russian oligarch who made his fortune in potash mining. In 2014, a Swiss court ordered him to pay his ex-wife Elena what was initially called the most expensive divorce in history, $4.5 billion. But this wasn't just about money. At the heart of the case was custody of their 13-year-old daughter, Anna. The couple had been married for 23 years and had 2 daughters, Ekaterina, who was already an adult at 25, and Anna, who was still a child when the divorce proceedings began in 2008. The case dragged on for 6 years before the initial ruling in 2014. Elena won custody of Anna, along with the massive financial settlement. The court also awarded her 115,000 Swiss francs per month, about $129,000, just to help raise Anna. But it gets complicated from this point. Dmitry appealed the massive settlement, and in 2015, the amount was dramatically reduced from $4.5 billion to $600 million. The couple eventually reached a private agreement that ended the legal battle, but the terms of that settlement were never made public. What happened to Anna during all of this? She was a teenager watching her parents wage a 6-year legal war that made international headlines. Her custody became part of court filings that were discussed in newspapers around the world. Her family's wealth, her father's business dealings, her parents' marriage, all of it was exposed to public scrutiny. And this is where having billionaire parents creates unique damage for kids. Regular divorce is hard enough on children, but when your parents' divorce becomes the most expensive in history, when global media covers every court filing, when the numbers being thrown around are so large they're incomprehensible, the psychological impact goes to another level. Anna's older sister, Ekaterina, had already established her own life by the time the divorce happened. In 2011, a trust acting in her interest bought an $88 million apartment in New York. At the time, a record price for the city. She later married a wealthy Uruguayan businessman. She had resources and independence. But 13-year-old Anna was stuck in the middle of a war between parents who had enough money to keep fighting indefinitely. The court gave custody to Elena, but that didn't end the battle. It just determined which parent Anna would primarily live with while the financial warfare continued. Farkhad Akhmedov and Tatiana. If you think the Rybolovlev divorce was messy, wait until you hear about Farkhad and Tatiana Akhmedov. This one has everything: a £453 million divorce settlement, a $500 million superyacht, multiple court battles across different countries, and most devastatingly, a son who sided with his father and ended up being ordered to pay his own mother over $75 million. Farkhad Akhmedov is a Russian oil and gas billionaire. His marriage to Tatiana ended in what became the UK's most expensive divorce case. In 2016, a London court ordered Farkhad to pay Tatiana $453 million as part of the settlement. Farkhad refused to pay. Instead, he embarked on an elaborate scheme to hide his assets and make it impossible for Tatiana to collect what the court had awarded her. And helping him do this was their eldest son, Timur. Timur Akhmedov actively worked with his father to conceal hundreds of millions of pounds worth of assets from his mother. They hid mansions, a superyacht, the Luna, worth about $500 million, a helicopter, and an extensive art collection. They set up complex offshore trusts and shell companies. They moved assets between countries and jurisdictions to keep them out of Tatiana's reach. Now, this wasn't a child being manipulated or not understanding what was happening. Timur was an adult, actively choosing to side with his father against his mother in a financial war. And in 2021, a London High Court ruled that Timur had been dishonest in helping his father hide assets. The court ordered Timur to pay his mother £75 million. The psychological damage here is almost impossible to quantify. Tatiana didn't just lose her marriage, she also lost her son's loyalty. Timur chose his father's billions over his mother's legal rights. The Akhmedov case also involved their other children, though Timur was the one who faced legal consequences. The entire family structure collapsed under the weight of the divorce. Brothers and sisters, forced to navigate a situation where one sibling is actively fighting against their mother. Family gatherings becoming impossible. Relationships destroyed, not just between the parents, but across an entire generation. And the legal battles are still ongoing. Even now, years after the initial divorce ruling, Tatiana is still fighting to collect what she's owed. The Luna superyacht has been seized, released, sanctioned, and fought over in courts across multiple countries. Every asset Farkhad owns becomes another battlefield, with Timur continuing to help his father avoid paying. Tiger Woods and Elin Nordegren. Few breakups have played out as publicly as Tiger Woods and Elin Nordegren's. Tiger Woods was at the peak of his career when his personal life imploded in 2009. The world watched as reports surfaced of multiple affairs, car crashes, and late-night chaos outside his Florida mansion. Within months, the illusion of the perfect athlete was gone, and so was his marriage. Elin Nordegren filed for divorce in 2010. The settlement was worth over $100 million, but money wasn't her focus. She wanted stability for their 2 children. Elin received physical custody, while Tiger retained shared legal custody, meaning he still had a voice in major decisions about their upbringing. Tiger went through therapy, injury recoveries, and public redemption. Elin kept a low profile, focusing entirely on her kids and education. Their children grew up away from the noise, shielded from the media circus that once surrounded their father. Today, Tiger and Elin are reportedly on friendly terms, co-parenting peacefully. But the scars of that breakup still linger. For the kids, their childhood memories are tied to headlines, scandals, and cameras. The divorce didn't just shake golf, it reshaped a family that once looked untouchable. Looking across these cases, a pattern emerges. Not a comforting pattern, but a consistent one. The common thread is, money doesn't protect kids from divorce trauma. In many cases, it amplifies it. When parents have billions, they have the resources to fight longer, hide assets better, drag out legal battles for years, and turn custody into another asset to be won or lost. Regular divorces end because people run out of money for lawyers. Billionaire divorces keep going because there's always another million to spend on legal fees. And the kids are just trying to survive in the wreckage, whether that wreckage comes with million-dollar apartments or court orders requiring them to testify against their own parents.